Hello, Maurits here. Today we will talk about statistics. And according to Wikipedia, statistics is the discipline that concerns the collection, organization, analysis, interpretation, and presentation of data. Okay? And when we collect data, we collect data by, for example, surveys, experiments, questionnaires, and so on. And we will look at data of two different types. We will have qualitative data and quantitative data. And quantitative data we will split in two different types, and by the way, that's also often called numerical. But we will talk about that also a little bit. Quantitative data could basically be split in two types. We have the discrete type and the continuous type. And the discrete type is basically something that a bunch of different possible values and not the values in between. And continuous basically means that you can have one value or the value next to it and next and so on in some flow. Discrete often, not always, answer the question how many, whilst continuous often answer the question how much. We will see that it's not 100% so. If I take a die, for example, and throw that, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that will be discrete data. But even if I on my sides write the numbers 1 pi square root of 2, 2/3, 17 and 0.2, so that is the possible results from throwing the die, it will be discrete data. And definitely if you throw a die, in a sense, what the result you get could be an answer question to how many eyes do you have. But if you write these and this on the sides, that is definitely not the case. You don't have pi eyes on one side and so on. So as that to say, why this is more how that this is often how many, but not always. The most important thing is that you have just particular values and not the values in between. So, and continuous means that you can have all the values in between, from some value to some value, and all the values in between. For example, as you grow, if we ask a question, how tall you are, or not a question, the data of how tall you are, that is continuous. You don't grow from 172 to 173 centimeters, bam, and not going through the values in between. But say you are a bunch of siblings, and how many you are, that is discrete. In computer science, we often call this digital, or not computer science, in electronics, and analog. And you have heard about this digital and analog recordings. That has very much to do with this. Analog recordings means that you have some kind of thing, like for example the groove on an LP that varies back and forth following the sound pressure, whilst digital data means that you record the sound level at some particular points, and they can only have some particular values, so you have a bunch of numbers. I said that then we can get to qualitative data, and that is basically not quantitative. You could, for example, ask people about their favorite color or what brand of car the family owns or something like that. That would be qualitative data. And even numbers could be that, because if you ask people about what is their favorite number, or what is their lucky number, you get a bunch of numbers. And the question is this really quantitative data? One way you can figure that out is it meaningful to take the average of it? Say you ask a bunch of people and then you find that the average lucky number is 17.36. Does that even make sense? And quite often, when it comes to qualitative data, you store that in a computer as quantitative things, so to speak, as numbers. You, for example, say that a Volvo is 1, Ford is 2, Koenigsegg is 3, and so on, and you store numbers instead of the name of the car. If you make a list of that and you take the average of that number, so the average car type is 17.42, doesn't make sense whatsoever. So I would say that just because stuff happen to be numbers, it's not necessarily numerical data or quantitative data. If you buy a product, say you buy a bunch of grapes, and the number of grapes in the box, that will be discrete, right? Or but the weight or mass of the box, that will be continuous. Even if the box itself has just one particular value, it could in principle have all the values. Say this was 173.4 grams. Of course, it could have the mass 173.5 grams, and so on. So even though this particular box has a mass of 173.4 grams, it's still, the data itself, the underlying data, is continuous. Sometimes it can be difficult to know if we have a discrete and continuous, and one particular example of that is money. It could be seen as both. If you ask about how much money you have in your pocket, I think it's best to talk about that as discrete. You have a number of crowns or number of euros, whatever. But if you talk about money on big corporate levels and so on, it's often better to see it as continuous. We talk about the flow of money because the singular crowns are so small compared to the complete things, so we can more see it like a flow. And if you think about it, a flow of water is, in a small enough scale, discrete. It's a bunch of atoms passing by, right? But because there are so many, we will see them as a continuous flow. And the same thing with money. So it's a bit depending on what you're looking for. So that was the first thing: statistics and quantitative and qualitative data. Ciao.